All right, I'm currently on the phone with Ronda Ray. She's another musician that reached out about the current interview session. So I'm going to go ahead and give her the chance to introduce herself.
Hey, my name's Rhonda Ray. I'm an award-winning rock artist, currently based out in Los Angeles, but I was born in St. Louis, Missouri.
Awesome. Well, thank you for joining me. I appreciate it. So let's get into some detail about how you began this journey in music. How old were you when you think you encountered music on a substantial level that made you want to participate in it?
Music was always part of the culture of our home. We would stand around the piano and sing. There was just always music going. I started piano at age 6. I played saxophone growing up, and I was the kid in like band and orchestra that they would just throw any extra instrument at and say, hey, go learn to play this. I was that kid. And growing up, I dabbled in guitar. I always wanted to play drums. My mom wouldn't let me. And then she wound up with a rock and roller career daughter. But yeah, it was just always important in our family.
Sure. So when you say gathered around the piano playing and singing together, there are two images that pop into mind. One of them is a family singing Christmas carols around a piano, and the other one is Tom Cruise in Top Gun playing Great Balls of Fire, and they're all singing along with it. Which would you say is more aligned with your version of that story?
Well, it would depend if it was my mom playing or if it was my cool aunt playing. So we kind of vacillated in the middle from the Christmas carols to, I was asked to pick out sheet music for a fancy piano recital, and I came home with Joan Jett and the Blackhearts, I Love Rock and Roll sheet music.
Awesome. Very cool. So tell me about the process of, going through school and them just throwing instruments at you. Was that ever kind of frustrating, or were you open to the challenge? What was that like?
It's very indicative of my wiring as an entrepreneur and the reasons I've been able to be successful in the music industry as a true independent artist that does everything themselves. Because I just have this thing in me that I just figure it out. When they pushed this big long marimba in front of me, I was like, oh, so this is just a piano and you hit it with sticks. Awesome. The cello was a little tough, and I was kind of mad because I didn't get a lot of guidance. Like back then, it wasn't like, teachers weren't helping you figure out your feelings, and it was just like, I graduated high school in the late 90s, but, it was like, here, just do this. There wasn't much coaching and mentoring around the process. That's the part that really bugs me. So I would hit this wall where I would say, because I was also an athlete. So I would be like, yeah, I'm going to the gym,
Okay.
But I think it built a lot of good character traits in me that I'm using now.
It sounds like from an early age, you kind of knew the type of music that you were into and that you wanted to get into. So tell me about what that kind of evolved into, that process of learning all those instruments. How did you begin to translate that into creating the type of music that you wanted?
I've always been defiant of the status quo. And I actually didn't play music. I got really burnt out with the structure of all of that, and always running into, being the kid that was like, I want to play drums and I want to play guitar. And they're like, here's a cello. I love the cello, nothing against the cello, but I got really tired of just having all that thrown at me. I was in leadership positions. If the conductor of the whole orchestra had to go take care of a lighting situation, the baton was passed to me literally, and all these kids are staring at me like deer in the headlights, and I just look at them, I'm like, play, and we do it. So I got really tired of that. And I also grew up in an agricultural family on my dad's side, and I loved horses, and I have an ag business degree, and I rodeoed and trained horses for 20 years and didn't even do music. And then at some point I started writing songs. I'd always written, But I started writing poems, and then I started writing songs, and then I picked up the guitar, and I was like, well, I've still got all that music theory in the back of my mind somewhere. I should be able to learn this well enough to play some chords. I never dreamed I would be doing what I'm doing now at that time.
Sure. So, not to interrupt you, we'll definitely get there, but I'm really curious about that period of time after you had been away from music for so long. What do you think it was that really kind of pulled you back into it? Did you just kind of reach a point where you had kind of settled all the ghosts from the past and you were ready to re-engage, or did something else happen?
There actually was. I was living in a small town in North Texas, and some people in the town were having a little community, kind of a Bible study thing, but it was way more. It's not the best term for it. People just got together from every different denomination and faith, and trying to create some unity in the community. And they didn't have anybody to sing and play. And it got tossed to me. There was nobody else to do it. And I said, well, I could probably pick this up and do it for you guys. And that's really where it started. And then I can't remember if I had already been writing, but somewhere around that time I just started writing, because I was like, my life is songs, because I live such a different life. And I would hear things on the radio and I would be like, man, I live this every day. And that's really what inspired me. And I made a trip to Austin where I met some really cool musicians that really unlocked. After that trip to Austin, I wrote 4 songs, and then I went to an open mic, and I really was just like, I'm just going to have this experience. I'm going to try it. I was working for a ranch full time. I was working for myself, and I loved all of that. And I went to these open mics and was really well received. And then after the second one, I got asked to play a paying gig. And then because I'm such an entrepreneur, I was like, it's like I was instantly addicted to it. Sure. And I was like, yeah, I can get paid for this. I've only been doing this 5 minutes. And the hustle was on at that point. But then there was a decade of developing that. So
that's awesome. So let's talk about that a bit then. After you wrote those 4 songs and realized that you could potentially have a career in future playing and writing music, how did you begin to explore that and leverage that entrepreneurial experience?
I was so green that I literally got out my computer and Googled how to book gigs. And I bought a PA from somewhere and didn't even know how to run it. Didn't know how to put it together. Figured it out in the living room. And then I realized, okay, so all these because most of my career I've spent around the Dallas-Fort Worth area of Texas, and how all these people that know what they're doing are playing in Dallas. Why don't I go to all these little towns around and while I'm learning and see what I can do? And I was like, I knew I could hustle. I knew I could work. I knew I could reach out and ask. And if people would let me come and play, it just seemed like a no-brainer that if I was willing to put the work in, it would happen.
Mm-hmm. Definitely. And that's a great attitude to have towards it as well. So tell me about where that has kind of come to through all of those shows and everything. Have you put a band together? Now you have like a full lineup, or are you still just doing it solo? How did that kind of manifest for you?
Yeah, I put a band together years ago. I did my own solo things, and I played in other people's bands, which is a great way to learn too. A lot of times you learn what not to do as much as you learn what to do. But yeah, I've been rolling full time, playing both full band and solo shows because I'm a working musician. I'm not. How do I get paid today? Is this budget a solo? Is this budget a duo? Is this budget a full band? It is still my approach. I am a true working musician, but I've been able to record full EPs plus a few singles. Got more music coming out next year. Made friends and contacts and played with musicians all over the country. Toured all over the South, Southeast, Midwest. I go through St. Louis all the time, and now I'm on the West Coast. I've won two awards. I won Best International Female Artist by Radio Wigwam over in London, and I won Rock Artist of the Year by the Josie Music Awards in Nashville. And right now, my song "Kiss Me Deadly," a cover of Lita Ford's 1988 hit, is in the running for Song of the Year with Indie Rage Radio. And this year, I made a huge change. I just drove out to LA, Los Angeles, and I've been out here playing shows and networking and meeting all these cool players. And the highlight of my year and the highlight of my career is happening Monday. I'm going to open for Stephen Pearcy. He's the iconic voice of Rat, which was a huge classic rock and metal band in the 80s. They were just giant, and get to open for them Monday night at the Whiskey A Go-Go on the Sunset Strip in LA. So really finishing off what was a really challenging year, stepping way out of my comfort zone because I had built a network. There was certain aspects of booking and things I didn't have to work that hard at because I'd built it. And to drive out here knowing nobody but my vocal coach, and I had one other friend in LA, and to take that challenge on it is not for the faint of heart, but to be finishing the year like this is a dream come true.
Yeah, that's amazing. Congratulations on all the success. That's great.
Thank you.
So you mentioned that you do have more music coming out. You mentioned that you've done a couple albums. Tell me about what the future kind of looks like in your, dream scenario. What would you want for yourself in the next 5 to 10 years?
My dream scenario would be to be playing on the biggest stages in the world, with my band, not having to, I'm going from LA to Nashville, so I got to put a Nashville band together, which I've done that sort of thing many times, but just to have my band that I'm taking care of and we're taking care of each other, touring the world, playing on big stages, writing together, recording and releasing music, and to really have the right team as far as the production process and the type of sound that I really want to get. I feel like I'm still chasing that because I've had to depend on other people as I learn, and I'm still chasing that, what I'm really after with my sound. It doesn't mean I don't like what I've done, but it's like, we just haven't quite hit it yet. And a lot of those pieces are coming together, and ultimately, every artist wants a team of people on the business side to help them run that and help it go. And all that comes down to is money. And there's plenty of money in the world. We just got to work hard and stay positive and be ready when we intersect it.
Awesome. Another great perspective on it. That's great. All right. So what are some of your most motivational events that have happened to you that keep you settled in, focused, and want to continue to make music?
I think the days that I get to help other people are my best days. Like when I get to really do something, maybe I'll make a social media video for someone or listen to their problems and struggles. Really, it reorients me to, man, I'm doing great, and that's really fulfilling. Getting to work with A Voice for Paws is a 501c3 I work with that helps rescue dogs. We're going to be doing a lot more with that next year. But you've got to fall in love with the process because it's not sexy and it's not spectacular. And the more I can detach from comes, like, I can have these goals of what I just said a little bit ago, but the more I fall in love with the process, the more I grow and mature and I don't take things as personally, the more I can look at a problem or an issue and go, well, instead of taking it personal, go, well, that's some new data that I didn't have that can inform my decisions going forward. Um, that's been over a decade of growth and pursuing it. And the more I'm actually getting to work on music, because all of the marketing and the selling and the booking and all that takes so much time, the more I'm getting to invest in the actual craft, when shows are on the calendar, gigs are really my gravity. I have to be playing live in front of people, and it doesn't matter if it's solo in front of 10 or 15 people or full band in front of 500 or 5,000 people. I have to be playing gigs.
Awesome. That's great. So where can people track the gigs that you're playing and follow you on social media? You mentioned that you do videos out there. Where can people find that stuff?
The easiest place to go is rondaraymusic.com, and it's RONDARAY music.com. You can find links to my socials there. I'm on TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, X, and Threads, and YouTube. And I'm really easy to find. If you just type in RONDARAY music, I will pop up on any of those platforms.
All right. Well, you've already given some really poignant and great messages throughout this interview, but what is a final message that you would want to share with other people so they can hear it?
Bet on yourself, but make sure that you're a good bet.